Welcome to Not What I Thought. I'm Erika.
I'm Yolanda.
And I'm Becca. We're therapists, entrepreneurs, and perfectly imperfect humans.
We first met during a business owner retreat where we became fast friends because we're not afraid to be real and ask the hard questions about life. What we thought it would be like, how messy it actually is, and the courage it takes to create the life we want.
We continue to build our friendship and personal growth through our own retreats. We find the deepest connection in sharing our struggles and finding what we have in common rather than what divides us.
We're breaking down hard topics on our podcast and together have conversations about what it takes to find real talk, real support, and real rest for professional women. We're glad you're here. Join us on your favorite podcast platform.
Okay, so today I wanted to talk about something I never thought I would be doing, which is firing an employee via text message.
Oh.
And probably no one should ever be doing, but
Oh.
So do tell how you came to be, because this is the other side of somebody's story that I can't believe I got fired by text message, right?
yes.
I wonder though.
I mean,
Is
that's
this
definitely
person really? Yeah.
yeah, what story is she telling to everybody?
Yeah.
It's awful. She fired somebody on a text message.
Mm,
Um,
just no.
just yeah. But so,
Behave, people.
it obviously wasn't an overnight, one day kind of process. It
Mhm.
had been after probably two formal meetings and then several informal kind of warnings and notices about my employee who was canceling clients last minute, morning of, not discussing it with me, not brainstorming other ways to go about the barriers that she was dealing with that was leading to the cancellations. And it was essentially interfering with the business for sure, but also interfering with the clinical work that she
Right.
the clients, which was my top priority in terms of maintaining high professional standards and good quality therapy and the things that are really important to me as a business owner. And so I essentially, the story I'm telling myself is that she knew she was going to be getting fired um, because I told her, if you do this again, then we're going to have to, end your employment. And that day, the day in question, she did it again and basically was like avoiding me at all costs, not answering her phone, not responding to emails, not responding to requests to have a phone call or a meeting or anything else. And so essentially, as the day went on, I worked with my practice manager and we decided, okay, this has to be done today because we need to start implementing some procedures with the clients, her existing clients. We needed to turn off her um, systems and all that so she didn't have access to people's information and that kind of a thing. And so that's where I went to my handy dandy chat GPT for advice on the verbiage that I should use.
Oh.
And then I asked chat GPT if this was the wrong thing to do and if people were going to judge me for it. Chat GPT said, sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Oh, I love that. Hmm.
I mean, you know, essentially like nobody wants to fire somebody this way. It does not
For
feel good
sure.
for anybody. Well, I don't know. I guess I don't know how it felt for her technically, but I can imagine it did not feel good for her, for me, for my practice manager, or for anybody involved. It's unfortunate.
Mm. Can I ask a question?
I can't wait.
Well, I mean, because you're sharing the details, um, and what a horrible situation. And I I do think I want to pause and just kind of highlight the clinical piece that you talked about because for maybe people who are listening who aren't a therapist and are kind of only are thinking of the business side, like, of course there's the business side, but also these are human beings, like on the other. the employee is a human being, and the clients that all of this is impacting are human beings as well. So I just kind of wanted to pause and highlight that a little bit because I didn't want that to get lost in the mix. But I am so curious if you would share your internal dialogue through all of this.
From deciding to fire her, or just in how that day ended up going?
Whatever you want to share.
Yeah, I was pretty anxious about it the whole time. There was definitely a piece of me that was like questioning if this was the right thing to do, even though I knew it was the right thing to do. Uh,
Mm,
which I just feels like, I don't know, something probably all business owners go through, but especially women business owners, I think, in terms of like, am I being mean? Am I being too harsh on this person? Am I holding the right boundaries or not? Have I done enough to make sure that this person was successful and that we were successful as a team and that kind of a thing? Um, Mainly my husband kept telling me, once you fire her, you're going to feel so much better. And I was like, I don't know.
mm.
I was just waiting
It,
for the day at which I felt so much better, and I still don't really.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Well, I think if I can, what you just said too, it's like, yes, as a business owner, as a female business owner, and then as a helping professional business owner, right? Because I think that there's like just this added layer of whatever expectations we have put on ourselves with that. Like I'm as a therapist and a business owner, I should, quote unquote, should be exceedingly kind and compassionate and understanding and figure out a way to navigate through this without having to put the hard limit in place.
I think there's this part, which is definitely true in our fields, but I think is also true in probably other fields, but maybe not quite to the same extent. But like the the clients who are coming in and participating in this service, they don't really build a relationship with the business, right? They're building a relationship with that individual therapist.
Mhm,
And I know when I haven't had to do it often, but when I have had to fire people, like that's not something that I take lightly. That these people have come and are like trusting us with their lives, their relationships, their mental health. And it's no small thing to just say, like, oh, well, your therapist doesn't work here anymore. Sorry. Right. Like that
mhm,
can be really destabilizing and disruptive for people. Um, and yeah, it's not something that we take lightly. And in your situation, you also have this thing of like, but this person is also not providing appropriate care to the clients. They are,
right.
and so there's this kind of all of these tensions that you're holding and these different responsibilities. And I just really appreciate this conversation because I think for sure my before becoming a business owner myself, my perspective on someone was getting fired is like, oh, probably something we saw from cartoons when we were kids or something. You do one wrong thing and the boss has an anger problem and blows their,
Uh,
fuse and like, that's it, you're
right.
fired, right? And it's like that horrible boss. How could they do that to you kind of thing? And I just don't know, like we're saying, especially for helping professions, especially for female business owners or managers who have to do this kind of stuff, we don't often see how it really is like a difficult struggle
Mhm,
to get yourself to the point where you go, okay, this is the thing that has to happen. And then you roll it out and like it doesn't feel good.
mhm,
Um, and there's kind of no way. And I think this is a, you know, genderless experience. Like, there's no way when you're the person who's doing the firing that the other person's going to be like, wow, thanks.
Yeah.
So glad you did, right? Like, so that doesn't feel good to go in to
mhm.
an interaction knowing that you are giving someone bad news.
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate you saying that. All these different pieces that feel like they're pulling at the same time,
Hmm.
Right.
just making it so anxiety provoking and just challenging. And um, I definitely kind of walk through, okay, how am I gonna do this? Like today's the day. How am I gonna do this? And it definitely felt like there was a piece of me that was like, maybe I can just send her an email. Like that would just be the
Mhm,
easiest thing and the most disconnected thing, maybe the most convenient for me. because there was so many emotions and heightened things going on. And so as I sat there and thought about it, I was like, no, that's not really how I want to do that. It doesn't feel professional. It doesn't feel like it's acting with integrity. So to eventually be, I guess I would frame it kind of forced into a position to not only do it via email,
Yeah.
but to do it via text,
Yeah.
which is like feels ultimately the most unprofessional way to do something like this. Um, it just felt really crappy.
Mm,
Mhm.
yeah.
When it can't even be blamed on, oh, you're just avoiding confrontation or didn't want to have the hard
Right.
conversation,
Yeah.
which was sure I thought I had, hey, what's the easiest way to get out of this? But wasn't my
Yeah.
wasn't my decision.
I think part of what is so hard about it is all of the effort. And again, we don't know fully her story. I don't know that you've really had much conversation or interaction with her since she was fired, but like all of the steps that you did have to go through to get to that point, and that was a lot of effort and a lot of things to take into consideration. So it's just um it had to have been really hard to come to the point where you're like, I've got to take this action that I never wanted to have to take. We don't Nobody hires someone thinking, oh, well, it's just a matter of time before I fire them. Um, but after you had been so clear throughout the whole process for it to escalate to a point where it had to go down like that is so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, kind of thinking about just leadership positions in general and trying to
Yeah,
check the boxes, do the right things, put the performance improvement plan together, make sure
right.
everything's documented, all the pieces. And I still found myself questioning at the end, like, have I done
Yeah.
all the things that I'm supposed to do?
Do you have a sense of what that was about for you?
Um, Not really. I do struggle sometimes with feeling loyal or making big changes like without trying anything and everything that I could think of to make sure that that was the right decision or that was okay.
What was left for you to try?
I mean, that's where we got.
Okay. Just checking.
Yeah,
Just checking.
yeah. That's where my brain will still spin on.
Mhm.
Okay, well, what maybe if I say it this way, or maybe if I say it that way, but at the end of the day, I think part of being a leader is recognizing that the other person is not willing to slash taking action to make the changes that I'm asking them to make.
Right.
I definitely have felt that as well. I know what you're talking about with like, I have to exhaust all possible options before it's okay for me to take this step. And I wonder what y'all think about where that comes from.
Mhm.
Is it being therapists in a helping profession? Is there something about the way that we are raised and socialized as females? Like where does that come from that we couldn't or we wouldn't feel okay early on to just be like, this isn't working, bye. I don't want to try the other things. And I'm not saying that we have
Mhm.
to do that. I'm just wondering, like, where do we think that comes from that we all feel like I am not allowed to take this action until I have tried and exhausted every possible everything?
I actually two different things come to mind for me, Becca.
Yeah.
One is my own tendency of over functioning.
Hmm.
So clearly this is my thing. Like clearly all the problems that ever existed,
Hmm.
that's a me thing, and I got to figure out how to fix it. So that is really a big piece of it. And then also what I've noticed over time, and there's a part of me that's embarrassed to admit this and say it out loud, but it's true for me. Part of it is, or can be, not always, but can be an ego thing for me.
Mm.
I want to have gotten this right, quote unquote, perfect. I don't want to have hired someone that it didn't work out. Clearly, there's something wrong with me and my hiring process or my ability to choose, to make the right hiring choice.
Mhm.
That's just what comes up for me as you say that.
Yeah. Yeah, same similar things. I'm also an overfunctioner. Um, but I'm thinking too, like FOOBs, family of origin bullshit stuff into, if you got a 90, if I got a 98, that wasn't good enough, right? Why didn't you get 100? What could you do next time
Mhm,
to get to the 100? And so I think that's just how my brain is kind of like wired. Like, okay, I know I've done 98% of the things, but what else can I do next?
Mhm.
Try to figure out this problem.
mhm,
Yeah. I'm thinking of a couple things. I think that culturally we have like we're so individualistic
mhm,
and also this kind of Puritan sort of work ethic thing that like if you can do it yourself, you should. Don't
mhm,
ask anybody for help. While this isn't quite asking for help, I think there is something that seeps in there in that like I have to do all of the things that are possible for me to fix something before I am allowed to take some other action, whether that be asking for
mhm.
help or saying this relationship isn't working or firing this person or, whatever that is. Um, and I think for me too, I really wasn't raised in a way that I was really taught to advocate for my own needs.
Mhm,
And so if something wasn't working, then it was always like, well, what can I do to fix it? I need to change the way I'm looking at this, or I need to be more compassionate of that person, or more understanding, or they're just doing
mhm,
this, or whatever. It, and I never was directly taught how to say this isn't working for me, right? That's something I've had to
mhm,
learn as an adult. Um, and so I think that absolutely plays in when we are in leadership roles, then that those relationship patterns are going to play out in how we treat the people who work for us.
mhm.
Like, oh, well, it must be me. Let me see what I can do. Let me figure it out. Let me, do all these things.
Mhm.
And maybe we don't have to put up with that for quite so long. Right? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe.
yeah. Another thing that is coming to mind for me, and this might be uniquely our profession, unfortunately. Um, Broadly speaking, there is so much shaming in the therapist community. Like therapists are really good at shaming one another, unfortunately.
Yes, we are.
No.
And so I think that that's part of it that factors in
Mhm.
um, for me as well, right? You should be more understanding. You should be more compassionate. You should, so that just kind of amplifies those messages that are already there. And
Yes.
another cultural and societal, implication. But yeah.
Like somehow because we are therapists that we're not allowed to just be human. Um, yeah. Yeah, I've seen that and know what you're talking about in the ways that therapists can shame one another, or that I've heard even related to firings and stuff. Like you read posts online, "Oh, I can't believe that person fired you. How unethical." We throw that around.
Right.
So unethical. I'm
Exactly.
like, I don't know that things actually are, we use that when we mean I don't like it. That's unethical.
Exactly.
True.
Yeah. I
Is it
mean,
though, really?
yeah, I'm thinking of, an employee situation that I've gone through and, it was like, well, don't shame them. And there's a big difference between I would not shame someone. Like that is counter who I am as a human being. But there is a difference between holding someone accountable, and
Mhm.
Brene Brown talks about this too, and shaming. And to hold someone accountable and the discomfort that goes along with that doesn't mean that I'm shaming you. But I mean, part of
Mhm.
leadership and part of the dynamics of an employer-employee relationship is that there's some accountability.
Yeah. Yeah. If you show someone the ways that they did not live up to the expectations, or they're not complying with the expectations of their job,
Hmm.
and they feel bad about that, that is
Hmm.
not you shaming them. That is
Exactly.
like natural consequence of they are not upholding their end of the agreement that you have with them, or they are not
Yeah.
meeting their job requirements. And if they feel something
Hmm.
about that, even if they feel shame about it, that doesn't mean that you
Right.
shamed them, right?
Yeah. That's a them thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and like that's just an important distinction, whether you added to the shame or they felt shame because of something.
Hmm.
Because you
Hmm.
shaming them would be like, what is wrong with you? I can't
Right.
believe you did this. You're such a fuck up. Why would you,
Right.
but if you're not saying that, if you're just saying, hey, you didn't complete this requirement of your job, I need you
Right.
to, we're going to do, X, Y,
These
Z
were the steps we
until,
talked about. Yep.
yes,
Hmm.
yes. I am
Yeah.
going to be checking with you every day until this thing is completed because it is a requirement,
Yeah.
right? Like that, and that's not the same thing.
No.
But we get all of this extra. I think yes, there is something just to our profession, Yolanda, but then I think we get extra because we are women. We are supposed to
Yeah.
be nice. Nobody likes
It
a
all.
woman who holds other people accountable. Nobody likes a woman who steps into her power. We expect women to be like kind and understanding and compassionate and soft and let me just help
Hmm.
you. Like maybe I don't
Hmm.
need to help you with that. Maybe you need to figure out how to do your job.
Yeah. That's part of the job.
Yes.
Showing up to your sessions is a very important part of your job.
Part of your job. Necessary
Yeah.
It's mandatory, in fact.
and required. I appreciate you bringing that up, Yolanda, because something I hadn't really thought about all that much. But yeah, with each issue that we were having, there was kind of a moving target of the reason as to why, that was happening that day. It was always kind of a
Mhm,
personal crisis, is I guess I would put it in
mhm,
that category, right? And I do feel I was extremely compassionate while still holding that accountability of like, yeah, that's awful. And use the
and
resources that you have, me and the practice
mhm,
manager, we can help
mhm,
you brainstorm. Here's like 6 ideas of how we can work with this. Like,
mhm,
because
mhm.
we have lives too, like therapists have lives too. But today my
Right.
tire blew right on the way to this meeting. Um,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah. And again, a non-negotiable part of this job is that you should show up for your clients in these sessions. That's kind of what you do.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. In the same way that we may be having a crisis, our clients are
Mhm.
coming to us because they are in pain,
Yeah.
which can be
That's
complicated,
mhm,
you know.
mhm. Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts about that that aren't necessarily in the realm of this conversation. Maybe we'll have that conversation at a different time.
Another episode.
Another episode.
Yeah, I think too that perfectionism tendency that I have can kind of I don't want to say impede my ability to take action, but definitely influences it, I think. So again, with the making sure I did everything I could do, like this feels real yucky and messy, and I don't want to um maybe take an imperfect action in the middle of a shitstorm.
Mhm.
And I think part of being a leader is making sure that you're taking the necessary steps when they are necessary.
Yeah. I do appreciate you giving voice to that as well, Erica, because when things are this big for me, in regards to my business, my adopted child part can like want to come out really like big and completely inappropriate. Um, so that's kind of like the balancing out the perfectionism versus the unbridled self-expression or whatever, right? To take that breath and come back to like what is right action? What is the next right
Yeah.
thing to do? Erica, what does your heart know to be true about this?
My heart knows that integrity matters, and maintaining my own standards is important, even if it's uncomfortable, and my way to deal with it is going to be uncomfortable. for everybody involved, unfortunately, that taking that imperfect next right step is better than staying stuck in a bad situation.
Mm.
Yolanda, what does your heart know to be true?
My heart knows that the hard things are hard. There's a reason that we call them hard. Um, and similar to what you said, Erica, when I stand in my own integrity and what I know to be true, um, it's what I fall back on when the little gremlins start to question everything. What about you, Becca? What does your heart know to be true?
My heart knows there's always two sides to the story.
Mhm.
And that it is okay for us to feel, any one of us to feel really solid in knowing that we did what we had to do in a particular situation, even when the other person maybe doesn't see it that way or didn't leave us options to do something the way that we would have wanted. Right?
Mm,
Erika would have loved to have this conversation in a different way. This is what was available. And like that
mhm,
is not necessarily fault of hers, right? That she can feel solid and good in that. And I think we all have situations where like the other person or the other people involved kind of don't let us do it the way that we would
mhm,
want to. Um,
mhm,
and that like that's okay, right? We can still
mhm,
feel good in how we handled our part.
mhm.
Yeah. And may
Big
you
hug,
never have
friend.
to fire someone by text
I know.
message again.
May this be the anomaly.
Yes.
Big hugs. Mm,
Oh, goodness.
yeah, for real.
We're so happy you've been listening to the podcast, and we want to make sure you love it. If there's a topic you want us to address, you have a question about one of our episodes, or you want to share your own Not What I Thought experience, we want to hear from you. Record a voice memo or email us at hello@notwhatithought.com.
Really, take out your phone now, record, send us a message.